All right, I'll take any questions about anything I've said so far. Anybody? Yes, sir.
So how many calories would you say on the average you ingest?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't have to guess because I've been asked this dozens of times. I have calculated it many times. My average caloric intake is between 1,000 and 1,200 calories per day. There are those, this guy I'm talking to who's now run into some challenges. 5 months raw vegan. He's now detoxing a bit, and yesterday was his birthday, and his family had a cake, and he said, "I pulled out a durian. I don't want to be tempted to eat the cake. I'm going to eat something I really," he said, "but I've had durian 3 nights in a row this week. And now I'm feeling a bit heavy." I'm like, yeah, I know, that's what happens, right? So if I've got durian, I'm probably overeating, okay? But I'm only going to do it every once in a while. It's not going to happen very often. You can be perfectly fine if you do something like that every once in a while. It's the doing it regularly that becomes problematic, right? This woman that Eric and I both know quite well, who took me 15 years to get her, and who had an amazing experience. She finally came to fast after 15 years of eating perfectly or close to perfectly, and couldn't believe how much detoxification and how much old material she eliminated from her body after 15 years eating only fruit and salad. But when we, it was, I think, the second time I came to Seattle to speak. I'm staying at her house, and one day she said, she'd lost like 75, 80 pounds changing her diet and looked amazing. But she said, "I'm having trouble losing this last 15 or 20 pounds, 10 pounds, whatever it was." And I said, "What are you eating?" And, breakfast and lunch was fine. I said, "Dinner, what do you eat?" She's like, "Durian." I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" I'm like, "Every night?" She's like, "Yeah, every night for 2 years, every night." Like, yeah, well, that's not going to work. You can't that's not going to be a very good way to lose weight. That's, it's relatively high in fat. You're probably, because it's so good, you're probably overeating it. You're probably getting way too many calories. And right, so that's not going to be a good strategy. But every once in a while, it's okay to indulge a little bit, as long as you're indulging on stuff that's good for you. It's okay if you overdo it a little bit. But for me, on an average day, it's between 1,000 and 1,200. And here's the thing about this. Now, consider what's happening for the average person, not you, but let's say the average person living in society, back in the U.S., back in L.A., wherever. Okay, every day they're consuming on average 5 times a day, and they're putting 5 times a day, they're putting something into their mouth where most of the nutrients, most of the value has been destroyed by cooking and processing. Okay, can you see that? Everyone clear with me there? Okay, cooking and processing, you're losing much of the value. You're actually creating toxic compounds as well. Creating toxic compounds by cooking food actually creates toxic compounds. We can come back to that, but that's what's going on. And you've got a lot of the value, the nutrients are gone. And they're putting it into a body that, is it working well, you think, the average body? Not so well. The average body doesn't digest very well. Right? Did you know that prior to the advent of Viagra, the number 1 selling drug in the world, type of drug in the world, were antacids. Antacids. Okay, why do so many people use antacids? Because they feel bad after every meal. Why do they feel bad? Well, they're eating stuff that doesn't belong in a human body, and they're putting it in a body that doesn't digest very well, doesn't work very well. Okay? So you take food where you've destroyed much of the value and created toxic compounds and put it in a body that doesn't work very well. How good are the results going to be, right? How much food might you need to be eating to get enough nutrients if your body's not assimilating very efficiently or effectively, not digesting very well, and therefore not assimilating well, and you've destroyed a lot of the nutrients? You might have to eat more just to get your needs met. What happens when you put the perfect food for the human body into a body that actually works well? How much do you need then? Okay? How much do you need, Brenda? Have you calculated it? No idea, calorie-wise? Okay? I don't know, how, you guys that are a week or 2 out of your fast, how are you feeling? Amazing, feeling good. Are you eating a ton of food every day?
Me?
Yeah, anyone?
No. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I had, a couple of years ago, we had a young man here from the UK who had a bad break in his lower leg, a compound fracture, multiple, compound fracture of the leg. And he was a professional football player. That's UK, that's soccer for the Americans, right? He played professional soccer in the UK. And he was told by the medical people that if he broke his leg again, he might not walk again because it was so bad. And so he retired, 32. Retired from playing professional sports after 10 years. And he came here to fast and heal. And he fasted for 30 days, which is a 12-day refeeding process with me. He was about on day 8, I think, of refeeding. So he'd been, just over a week refeeding. He was now eating at that point probably, well, in fact, he came to me one day because at this point he's working out like 3 hours a day. He's running. He's using the exercise bars. He's jumping on the trampoline. He was doing all this activity. And he said to me, Loren, he said, I'm curious, how many calories am I eating now? So I went and calculated for him. We don't feed people based on calories, but I went and calculated what he was getting on an average day at that point. And I came back to him and said, you're getting about 1,200 calories a day. And he said, when I was playing soccer, to be this active, I'd be eating 4,000 calories a day. I'm now eating a third as many calories. And he said, I've never felt this good in my life before. I feel strong, I feel energetic, I feel amazing, better than I ever have on 1,200 calories. And that's what happens. And we stop bogging down the body with all this work of digesting more than we need. Okay? But that only happens when we keep the body clean and we're not consuming all this heavy stuff we don't need. Okay? Crazy. Crazy what happens. Other questions?
On the protein thing, people that I know that transition to being vegan, they do be careful to get enough calories, but then they seem to think that they need more protein to be satisfied, to not have to eat again so soon or like that. What's going on?
Well, so first of all, I think what's going on is that they're confusing being satisfied or being satiated with other things. So let's do something. We do this a lot when people are fasting. We probably do this with some of you guys when you're fasting here. Let's quickly go around the room, and I want you to tell me, not now. If you've already worked with me, it's different now. But through most of your life, what did you experience when you felt hungry? When you thought you were hungry, what were you experiencing? What did you feel in your body when you were hungry?
Stomach growling.
Stomach growling. Anything else?
Well, depending if it was low blood sugar, I would have a whole array of low blood sugar symptoms that might be different, not the same thing as that hungry growling.
Okay.
Feeling.
Stomach growling. Yep.
Just kind of a intensity and like a emptiness.
Okay. Empty stomach. Okay. What else?
I don't know how to describe it, but just hunger.
You can't use hunger to describe hunger. That doesn't work. That's like telling me that blue is blue.
You always tell me you feel like you're going to pass out.
Okay. So you.
I haven't eaten for a while. I feel like I always eat. I'm always hungry.
Okay. So feeling like you're going to pass out. Okay. Feeling weak. You get weak. You get tired. You get dizzy.
I get energized when I eat.
Right. But I'm talking about before you eat. What are you feeling?
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay. All those things are possible symptoms of hunger for you. Austin, what have you felt when you felt hungry in your life?
Does it feel like when you're hungry?
Weak. Okay. Jen?
Same things as they already said.
Okay. All right. Nothing new. Alex? Fatigue. Brian?
Sometimes you associate with like that pain, that kind of,
Some pain in the belly?
well, like a pang, like
Pang. Okay. All right. Sarah? Hanger? You get hangry? Okay. Brenda? Irritable? Okay.
Yeah, along with what she said, the hunger pangs, maybe a little bit of the growling in the stomach.
Okay. Fair enough. Eric?
Just
Anything
feeling
new?
I want to eat something. It's, I guess, psychological.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Is there any physical sensation?
Pain.
Any physical sensation?
I mean, I've felt those things.
Okay.
It doesn't happen so often.
Not always.
now.
Yeah. How about you, Robert?
all the time is
The same. Okay. So, we've probably had from this group maybe 8 or 10 different symptoms that people get, and there's sometimes others that people come up with. And here's the crazy thing. For most people, it's hard to believe this, perhaps, but none of those things have anything to do with your body needing food. They're not hunger. Okay? That's not hunger. It's not what hunger is. Those symptoms occur because if you, let's say you skip lunch, you have these symptoms. Now that your body's not having to process food all those hours, it begins detoxifying. That's what you're experiencing. Okay? Imagine for a second, we live in the jungle, our natural habitat, and you're hungry. Let's say you're really hungry. You haven't been able to get food for 3 or 4 days. If you get dizzy and weak skipping one meal, feel like you're going to pass out, let's say the only food available, it's 20 feet up in the tree. What are you going to do if you're so weak you can barely move? Okay, you're not going to eat very well. All right? That's not hunger. Hunger is not any of these unpleasant symptoms. Those things are all about detoxification. Okay? Remember that we do not run on today's food. Okay? You have a car? Does your car run on gasoline? You sure? I would say it doesn't. Let me explain. The gasoline is the fuel that you use. Right now, before you can do anything with that fuel, what do you need to do? You turn the key and what's happening? There's an electric starter motor that's getting energy from the battery that starts the engine moving. We're not talking about Mazdas, we're talking about piston engines, not rotary engines, right? So the pistons are going up and down. This mechanical energy moves your car. The gasoline's fuel. And that fuel does nothing for your car if you don't have an energy source to get the engine moving so it can use the fuel. Okay? Food is the fuel that your body uses to produce electricity. We run on microelectric current. And I think at some level we know this because, oh man, I got to go lay down. I got to recharge my batteries. Yeah, that's exactly what you're doing. That's what's happening. Okay? We make electricity primarily while we're sleeping. We're not running on food. And so without having eaten anything, if your body's not detoxifying, you've got plenty of energy. I don't think it happened this session. I can't remember this session fasting, but it's not unusual over the last few years. I'll have an injury of some kind, and while my clients are here fasting, I fast 3, 4, 5 days. Back in the last session, I fasted for a week, and no one knew it. Now, I can tell when most of you guys are fasting because you're going, how you doing? I'm fine. Right? Not a lot of energy, maybe not so clear sometimes mentally, sometimes plenty of mental clarity, but not always. You can usually tell. My clients can't tell I'm fasting. Because I've already detoxified my body to a great extent, it's not doing much detoxification. I have plenty of energy when I fast. So people can't see that, okay? I feel perfectly fine when I'm not eating. Perfectly fine. I have just as much energy as when I'm not eating as when I do. So when we go to the beach, if there's waves, I'm in the, normally, not when my back is hurt, I'm in the water and I might be body surfing 3 or 4 hours before I eat anything, if I get there early enough. I don't need the food for energy. I'm running on microelectricity. I've got plenty of energy in my body, and I've got plenty of reserves to make more if I need to. I don't need food to do that. Now, of course, the body wants us to be refueling, right? Of course it wants us to refuel from time to time, but we don't need that energy right now from that food right now. So if it's not the energy from the food that's making us go, why do we feel more energetic when we eat? Why do you feel energized when you eat? What is your body now not doing anymore? You put food in your belly and your body now says, well, I guess I got to do the work of processing this food. Not much more detoxification happening. Okay? That's why you feel energized. That's why we feel better. Okay? You want to be really clear and never forget this. Okay? Because it completely shifts your paradigm about eating and energy. All right? Every day, normally, when I work out in the mornings while I'm doing calls, between calls, I'll do some exercise. Every morning, before I haven't eaten anything for 15, 16 hours. No problem. It's no problem at all. I don't need food to feel energetic. Okay, you won't either when your body gets clean enough. If you skip a meal and feel bad, here's what I've always said. The harder it is to skip a meal, the more meals you probably need to skip. Okay, because your body's cleansing. Okay? If skipping a meal is no big deal, okay, skip another one. Still no big deal? In fact, people say to me, how do I know if I need to fast again? How can you be sure that I've said to you, you're probably going to benefit from 2 or 3 fasts, right? How do you know that that's true? Well, 6 months from now, when you have a long weekend, you can take 3 or 4 days and do nothing. Do nothing. Stay in bed, sip water, see how you feel. If you start detoxifying, and you guys know what it feels like now, right? You start detoxifying, you know you're going to benefit from fasting. If you can go 3 or 4 days without eating and feel perfectly fine, maybe you don't need to fast again. Does that make sense? Okay.
That might fit with this question. And if a person is going fruit only, or from here on out, or however, why do they need to do a fasting or water fast? Because it's still not fruit only. It's still not detoxifying enough the body over time, and it takes a lot longer time to do it.
Right. So let's be really clear about this. Remind me again, what heals your body? The body heals itself. So first of all, people say things like, raw food healed me, or green juices healed me, or macrobiotic diet healed me. Okay? Are any of those statements true? No. What's true is that by going from a conventional diet to a healthier diet, you liberate energy, you stop creating a daily burden on the body, and the body has a better chance to heal itself. But none of those things heal the body heals itself. There are many people who go to a raw vegan. How many of you found that by going raw, you got healthier? You noticed some improvements. Your body healed itself to some degree by going raw. Not because raw food heals you, but because less of a burden on your body. Okay? But how many of you know someone, maybe yourself, in fact, if you don't mind saying, how many of you found that eating an all raw vegan diet did not allow your body to heal to the extent that you wanted it to? Look around. Okay? Again, most of these folks have fasted with me, and that's because even being all raw, they didn't get what they wanted. Okay? So yes, people get healthier because in every moment the body's attempting to detoxify and to balance itself, but processing any food takes a lot of work. Even with the best diet, the body may not be able to do what it's able to do. What happens fasting is unbelievable. I mean, and I mean that literally. If you don't believe me, I understand. It's like we see things that shouldn't, how can that happen? I mentioned today, I just remembered Stuart. Anybody here know Stuart? I don't think anyone was here when he was here. Stuart is, do you know Stuart? No? I thought maybe you'd been to a fruit festival or something. Stuart's a guy I've known on Facebook now for maybe 6 or 7 years. He contacted me that long ago after watching a video and said, I want to come fast with you. I'm trying to finish my PhD. He's a brain scientist. And he was, by the time he finally got here, several years after he contacted me, he was 45 years old. He was diagnosed with severe osteoarthritis at the age of 18. For 27 years, he'd been in severe pain every single day, on medication every single day, which means he couldn't use his body or his mind the way he wanted to because he was affected by the drugs, right? He came to fast, and he understood that we don't take any drugs while fasting. He understood that. So he came to fast. He stopped taking painkillers. On day 5, he came to me in the morning and tears and said, I don't know if I can continue. I've never experienced this much pain before. And I taught him some exercises to alleviate pain. And I held his hand emotionally through these next few days. And on day 10 or 11, he came back to me again with tears in his eyes. But this time he said, this is the first day in 27 years I've had no pain. In April or May, it will have been 3 years since he completed his process. He is still 100% pain-free, no medication. He cleaned the garbage out of his body. He was a raw vegan before he fasted. Okay? Nora will tell you, amazing things happen. She was a raw vegan 15, 17 years before she fasted. This other woman, this author I mentioned, had been a raw vegan for 20 years, fruit and salad, 20 years, and couldn't believe what happened for her. I guarantee anybody, I'll guarantee you in writing, if you're open and coachable and willing to follow simple directions, and I'll tell you, not everyone is, but if you're willing to do what I'm encouraging you to do, you will leave here feeling and functioning better than ever. You will. I don't care what you've been doing. I don't care what your diets look like. There's nothing as powerful as fasting properly and long enough. And we're going to come back to fasting, but that's... Any other questions about diet? Anybody?
I feel like I kind of already know the answer to this, but I want you to say it. Whatever your answer is. Does fasting make it easier to stay raw vegan?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll share a sad story with you. This is really, it's killing me. I had a client who, so I work with people via Skype. Not everyone can get here. Eric's fast with me via Skype. Sometimes for whatever reason, whether it's economic reasons or because they have things they need to attend to, whatever, it's hard for people to get here. Some people fast with me via Skype. We do a daily call, 30 minutes every single day. They need a automatic blood pressure monitor. They need a thermometer. They need a scale. They take their numbers every day. They send them to me. We talk at a prearranged time. I call them. And we talk, just like here, we talk about what these numbers mean, what you need to do, what's happening for you, what you're experiencing. I keep people safe and successful. She was going to fast 30 days with me. And around day 23, it got really difficult for her. And she was like, all I can think about is breaking my fast. I think it was on day 24, 25. I called her at the regular time. She said, well, I couldn't go any longer. So I drank some orange juice. Like, I was really disappointed because the benefits in that last week are so much greater than the benefits before that. And it was a shame because she had some things she wanted to heal. She had been suffering, struggling for a long time. No one should break their fast with orange juice. Concentrated sugar in the absence of fiber, shoots your blood sugar up, not a good idea. And I said to her, I'm really sorry. I would have loved for you to have talked to me first. I at least could have guided you to make better choices. She's like, yeah. She said, in fact, I know that you know best. And because I don't want to do what's best, I don't want to talk to you anymore. And we haven't spoken since. She still had like 2 weeks of time with me. Every day I'm like, I'm here. You want it ready to talk? She's like, nope. I said, I'm going to be there every day in case you change your mind. You paid for the time. I'm going to be there. But she doesn't want to talk to me. Okay? She's making poor choices. And she's making poor choices because as her body is rehydrating this old, nasty, old, hard material in her system, which it was able to break down via fasting only, now she's rehydrating it. She's starting to crave some of the stuff she used to eat. How many of you guys experienced that when you fasted? Had cravings for stuff you don't eat anymore? Okay, that's what happens. Look around. These are all the hands of people who had these cravings while in their process. That's what happens, okay? And this is, instead of going, okay, I get it, I'll stick with the program. Because once you get through the process and get this stuff out of your body, there are no more cravings for it. So if you fast long enough and properly, Alex, you don't have those cravings. It's a lot easier to stay raw afterward. It's a lot easier. And to keep it simple. Yeah, I know. You and I have been talking for a while too. 10 years for you struggling. Yeah. A lot of people struggle. Don't feel bad. It's, our bodies are toxic from years of making poor choices. It's not easy. We start to make better choices. The body starts to detoxify. If you're detoxifying heroin, your body wants heroin. If it's cocaine, your body wants cocaine. If it's cheese, your body's going to crave cheese. Okay? That's what happens. When your body's clean, you're going to be perfectly happy eating watermelon and papayas and mangoes, and there's nothing else you're going to need. That's all you're going to need. And you're going to experience something which, again, I think may be difficult for some people to understand. But as long as I get enough sleep, which doesn't always happen, but as long as I get enough sleep, I have an abundance of energy every single day. I feel fit. I feel strong. I feel clear. And when I started this journey, how many of you experimented with substances? As a teenager, a college student. Okay, I never did. I experimented a little bit. I tried marijuana 3,000 or 4,000 times. I had to be really sure, right? So I smoked it every day for 10 years. And by the time I was in my early 20s, I could not connect the dots often. Couldn't find the words I wanted. I'd become an idiot. And you probably met some pot smokers and you thought, that guy's an idiot. Yeah, well, they're not really stupid, but they've lost the ability to use their brain the way their brain can work. Okay, that's what happens. It definitely happened to me. And I fasted, and damn, if that first long fast, I didn't get it all back. It's like, there's my brain. Oh yeah, I remember that. And that made me go, I never want to be in that position again. I like being able to think well. And I like feeling great every single day. That's what's possible. Okay. Any other diet-related questions?
I have heard you say that Darwin recognized that we're frugivores, and then I saw another quote. Linnaeus also had something where he said the natural diet is fruit and tender greens.
Well, again, our digestive system, so whether you believe in evolution or you believe in creation doesn't matter. Simple fact is that we share like 99% of our DNA with our closest primate relatives, and their digestive systems are nearly identical to ours. Their large intestine is a little bit longer than ours relative to the small intestine. Ours is overwhelmingly small intestine, relatively short large intestine. Right? It's called large because it's 3 times the diameter of the small. But the small is much longer. Okay? In these anthropoid primates, our closest primate relatives, their large intestine is longer relative to ours compared to the small. That suggests that they're actually better suited to eat more roughage than we are. And that happens because living in the jungle, in the rainiest months of the year, there's less fruit available, right? In those months where there's less fruit available, they are forced to eat other things. They still try to eat soft, tender plant parts, but they can't always get things that are so soft and easy to digest. Nothing's as easy as fruit. I think, Alex, you had the experience, I may be wrong, someone here I think had the experience of on the first day we allow people to eat lettuce with their fruit, coming to me the next day and going, shouldn't have done that. Was that you?
No, I loved it.
Okay. Did anyone have that experience? Was that you, Robert? Did you have that experience? No? Did anyone have that experience?
Oh, sorry, after the day when I started eating lettuce, it wasn't until like maybe day 7 or something.
Okay, and you were fine with it?
No, I felt it was heavier.
That's what I'm saying. I felt like it was too much. Right, because even soft, tender lettuce, we have romaine here. We don't use things like that. It's charred. It's all lettuce, soft, tender lettuce. Even the lettuce is a lot harder to digest than the watermelons and papayas that you've been eating up until that point. Okay, and that's the thing. So, we're certainly not intended to be eating these denser greens and other plant parts that they're forced to eat because that's all they have. We have access to all the fruit we want. Right? We can make that happen. Most of you live in places where, probably within 20 or 30 minute drive, there are multiple places you can go buy whatever you want to. You don't ever need to run out of fruit. Yeah.
We have a hard time sometimes finding good organic fruit in the winter season, and so I know that frozen food is lower standard.
It's not optimal. Yeah.
But sometimes that's the only way.
Yeah. Well, and listen, again, I think it's important to get clear for yourself where you're willing to compromise and where you're not. Okay? We are going to share with you, I think it'll probably be tomorrow. I'm not sure. We're gonna have some ice cream for you. It's gonna be simple though, okay? Just fruit. Just fruit. And it's gonna be amazing. If you haven't had this before, I think you're gonna be blown away by what it is. But we'll do that every once in a while. I think the last time I had that was probably 2 months ago or so. It's not something that happens very often, okay? Every once in a while. I remember once I had a client that lived when we were still in the DC area. I had a client who lived she lived in Virginia, 30 minutes away around the Beltway. And once a month, we would meet in person for a 1-hour consultation. She'd prefer to do it in person. So she'd come to me. Every once in a while, I'd go to her. And on one of our meetings, we had a potluck. I started a potluck group, and we met every month. And one month we did it at her place. And before we met, she and I did the consultation. And so I told her, she had a Champion juicer. I said, did you know you can freeze bananas, take them out of the peel, put them in a bag, freeze them, run them through this machine. They come out like frozen custard. Right? She's like, really? I'm like, yeah. So a month later, I see her next. I said, how you doing? She said, I'm doing great. I'm having banana ice cream every night for dinner. And I said, I apologize. I neglected to mention this should be an occasional treat, not a daily, not one of your 2 or 3 meals a day. That's not optimal. It's okay every once in a while. Now, my first 14 years living on fruit, I lived outside of Washington, D.C. Not that different. Colder than where you are, in fact. What we had was tons of citrus. That's citrus season. So we had oranges. We would usually have a couple kinds of oranges, a couple kinds of tangerines, pink grapefruits. We would have 2 or 3 kinds of apples and a couple kinds of pears. We would have kiwis and bananas. We would have salads. Late in the fall, you'd have a period where there were figs still. You'd have pomegranates at one point. Persimmons would come in at one point in time. Short seasons. But that was every year for 14 years. I lived on citrus, apples, pears, bananas, kiwis, and salads as the primary fare, and it was perfectly fine. And when the spring came, and all of a sudden there were fresh berries available again, and then later on there were stones. It's like life is good, right? You look forward to those seasons. That's okay. We get spoiled in this world where we can get anything we want anytime. But you know what? The quality of that stuff out of season, it's hardly worth eating. When your body's healthy and you can actually taste food. It's kind of funny when I travel in the U.S. Here's a common thing. People are like, I remember I was speaking in a town in Arizona, and the owner of the venue was a woman who had heard me speak the previous year, and she owned this historic old church and had a cooking school there, and had this this beautiful space. She said, you can use this space to give a lecture and seminar. So we went over to see it, and she said, I have a gift for you, Loren. And she gives me this box of mangoes, right? These are mangoes that were imported from Mexico or somewhere. And I said, thank you very much. And as we left, I turned to my friend David, who was driving me around. He was putting me up, and I said, you can have these. He's like, you don't want them? I'm like, dude, I get amazing fresh mangoes right off the trees, 3 months a year. Why am I going to eat these? These are never going to compare. When I'm in the U.S., I'm going to eat that was like March, I'm going to eat the blueberries and blackberries and raspberries that I don't get here, which are fresh, from that part of the world. Those are the things I'm going to focus on, right, wherever I go. It's whatever's fresh and local to that place, as much as is possible. Other questions? Yeah.
If mother's milk is, say, the perfectly designed nature food for babies, and their ratio is, say, 1% protein, 5% fat, 7% complex carbs, do you think that ratio changes as you age? Maybe a little less protein or a little less fat? Or how do you think that ratio changes as you get into, obviously, advanced stage?
Yeah, well, what I would say is that, and as I understand, I don't remember all the composition, but as I understand it, the protein, which again is what so many people focus on, in mother's milk over the first year is only around 2.5% protein on average.
Or less, 1 to 1.5.
It changes, but I think the average is somewhere in that, maybe less. So I would suggest that our protein needs would likely be greatest when we're growing the fastest.
Right, so diminish.
And that's in that first year of life. We triple in size in the first year of life. Anyone raise your hand if you've tripled in size in the last year of life? Okay. We slow down. I mean, I think by the time we are 2 or 3, we're only growing like 5-10% per year. Still pretty fast compared to now, but we never come close to tripling in size again. My guess is they go down. The key is to make sure that our bodies work well, and then getting enough protein. For me, getting enough protein from watermelon and papaya, my staple foods over the last 14 years, it's been no problem. I'm not big, I'm never going to be big, but I'm strong for my size. And I maintain that easily without having to do a lot of work, living on foods that are relatively low in protein. It's no problem. No problem at all. Okay. Other questions? Anyone?
Yes, guess about essential fatty acids, if the diet's not including any nuts or seeds in general, except for special occasions, then when we do add those nuts and seeds, do they throw out our ratios that we already had in balance from the fruit and greens?
Possibly. I mean, your body is pretty good at eliminating what it doesn't want or need. As long as we're not really overdoing it, it's probably not going to be a huge problem. How many of you have had, I mean, I've still had this experience. So first of all, when I first went raw and I found myself craving something that it wasn't on my plan, I would go to the market and I would buy a pound of organic raw cashews. Not raw, we all know now, right?
Yeah, they
But
came off the shelf.
But it said they were raw. I thought they were raw. And I'd buy a pound of organic medjool dates. And I didn't need any marijuana, but I'd sit in my car and get stoned, eating dates and cashews together, right? Powerful thing. I'd get high. It didn't take too long, and I felt okay at the time because my body was still detoxifying. It wasn't so clean and vibrant then. It wasn't too long before I realized if I tried eating that quantity of nuts, my body felt really bad. It didn't want that anymore. Okay? So I think if you pay attention, you realize before too long that it just becomes way too much. And for me now, even a little bit of nuts and seeds is plenty. We just don't need very much of it.
Yeah, because when I eat nuts and seeds, I feel like, especially, more than just a couple, I feel bad.
Yeah.
He feels really good. So what's the...
Well, what's happening is your diet's been cleaner, right? Your body may be a little bit better able to distinguish between these things, interact with it in a positive way. Your body's trying to start eliminating some of this garbage. It's now feeling heavier than usual and burdened down by this, while Sheldon's body might be going, okay, now I'm doing less detox. This feels good. The heavier stuff's going to slow things down. So for people that are detoxifying, they feel better when they eat heavier. And that's why, I have people argue with me all the time. No, we have to eat nuts and seeds. I feel much better if I do. I'm like, yeah, that'll change when your body's clean enough. It'll change. Okay. How many of you guys that are refeeding, Robert, I guess the only one still refeeding officially, or just finished refeeding the last week or two, feel any need for nuts and seeds? Anybody? No. No need for it. Yeah, one more question. Go ahead.
If a person starts to do a long fast, but they're already don't have extra fat and stuff,
Yeah.
it's still helpful and they have plenty to feed on.
Well, assuming they know what they're doing, it's perfectly fine. Everybody's got fat reserves. Some people have a lot of fat reserves. Some people are wealthy in nutrient reserves, and other people not as wealthy, right? But we have plenty of people that start out their fast already very lean, like Peter, who fasted this session, like Guzelle, who fasted with me twice. When she first got here to fast, she's 5'7". She was 88 pounds. 88 pounds. Okay, she fasted 21 days. Okay? Okay, need I say more? Someone who's very lean is going to lose. Now, the average person loses 21 pounds. She lost under 9 pounds. That's what happens. If someone's very lean, they lose much less weight. It's perfectly fine. You need to know what you're doing. But if you're doing it properly, look, how many of you had Austin at home?
What do you mean?
Natural birth.
No.
You were in a hospital.
Yeah.
Okay. You have children at home? No, hospital. You told the story.
Yeah,
Hospital.
That was
Yeah.
a long time ago.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. But so, ladies, whether you have children, most of you do, I think, women here, but two of you don't. Would you consider, do you think you would have ever considered giving birth by yourself, alone, without having at least a doula or, no. It's a completely natural process. For thousands of years, humans have given birth. But you know what? Most women don't do it very often, right? And we're not surrounded by lots of women giving birth all the time, and so it's not something that people. It feels scary and can be potentially harmful and dangerous if it's not done correctly. And so most women were probably going to want to have someone guiding them through the process. How many people grow up with people fasting around them, like regularly for weeks at a time? This has been lost to our culture. It's not something we understand anymore as a culture. And so, yes, it's a natural process. I mean, anyone can stop eating. That's true. But actually doing the entire process correctly, it's not so easy to do on your own. So, I forget what the original question was, but I would say have supervision. And then, as long, even if you're lean, you'll be perfectly fine. But we actually have several videos with people who are very lean. There was one guy named Remo. You saw the video. He was 130 or 132 pounds, 6 feet tall when he started. Fasted for 55 days or something, 54 days, 7.5 weeks. We had another guy that was 6'3", 160 pounds, pretty lean, 6'3". How tall are you, 6'4"? How much do you weigh?
About 190 pounds.
Yeah, imagine being 30 pounds lighter, almost the same height. Okay? This guy fasted for 51 days, more than 7 weeks. It's no problem. Okay?
With the fast of that duration, do they plan ahead for that, or are they just kind of seeing how they go after the 21 days, they're just taking it a little bit at a time?
Well, most people with me plan ahead. And the reason they plan ahead is because I require them to. And the reason so when I opened Tanglewood 22 years ago this month, I had no idea how many people would come and fast, whether this would work or not. And initially it wasn't easy. And what we did was you could come for 3 days or 10 days or whatever number of days you wanted. And you could pay as you went. I was happy to have you there and paying so I could pay the bills. And what happened was, before too long, we got to the point that we were full most of the time. And then I needed to know, how long are you going to be here for? Because we're going to slot someone else into that bed when you're gone. So we need to know in advance. And so all of these guys decided in advance, I'm going to be here for 4 weeks or 5 weeks or 6 weeks. And sometimes it's possible. Actually, Robert was going to be here for 4 weeks and came to me and said, can I go longer? And it was possible at the time. It was the end of the session. We had some space. I was going to be here that week between closing the session and starting the festival. And I said, you could finish your feeding process. He's on a specific program right now, a protocol where his meals are measured, and he's not, he sits with us, but he's not really eating the same right now. That's why, because he's still in their feeding process. That was possible for him. It's not always possible to do that. So usually people decide in advance.
Do you help them determine how long?
I do, yeah. People, I did a call this morning with a guy who said, I'm dealing with these issues for 15 years. What do you think? And I said, well, this, if I were you, this is what I would plan for, because that's what it usually takes with those kinds of issues. He's got neuropathy, nerve issues, and he's looking at a 30-day fast to heal this, most likely. All right, well, let's end here.